today what I was going to share with you guys is what I call the content mirroring method. I'm going to grab the screen here in a few minutes if it's all right with you, Daryl, and I'll kind of just walk through this process and give you guys a little bit of background on it. But one of the things that I've kind of discovered over the last many months, Daryl, I did a webinar for your group earlier, or last month, I guess it was, for the Google Business Process checklist.
Yeah.
And so on-page factors are 70% of ranking Google My Business, or Google Business Profiles, I should call them now, is having on-page factors correct, right? So the Google Business Profile itself optimized properly. If there is a self-hosted website associated with the location, that should be optimized well. The content should be tuned to be competitive, all of that. And so, but you still need links, right? You still got to have off-page factors, right? You got to have off-page signals, inbound links, traffic and engagement, activity signals, essentially. Like reviews for Google Business Profiles are also a ranking factor. They're not the be-all, end-all, but they are a ranking factor. Right. So all of these other things that still need to be done. Well, here's the thing. You guys know content can be expensive, right? Either it takes a lot of your own time to develop, or you got to pay somebody to do it. And so content can be expensive. Like well-tuned content, when I say tuned, I mean like well-optimized content that is competitive with the top-ranked organic competitors. If you're going to do it yourself, you're going to spend a lot of time, or if you're going to buy it, you're going to spend a lot of money for good content. And so, I wanted to figure out a way to get more mileage out of a piece of content for link building opportunities without having to produce new content all the time. And so the content mirroring method is a way to take well-optimized, well-tuned content that is already existing on your money site, or in some cases, Google Business Profiles don't even have money sites for some of the tree guys I do. Some of my clients, they don't even have self-hosted websites because they don't care. They just want leads. And I can accomplish that with Google Business Profiles without even a self-hosted website. However, even in that case, the location landing, or the Google Business website, which is essentially a landing page, we produce well-optimized content for that. And so in either case, whether they have self-hosted site or not, we still end up investing, and I have an in-house team that does it, but we still invest in developing really well-optimized content for that location. And so what I figured out a way to do was to kind of repurpose that content into multiple formats using that exact same content. So I don't need anything new, and using some of the AI tools that are available now, like Page Rewriter, Quillbot, which is a rephrasing tool, or Jarvis, if you're using that, or any sort of these, kind of rephrasing tools, not spinners, but rephrasers. And, and to repurpose existing content into Google My Business or Google Business posts, YouTube videos, and then Google site silo pages. So essentially a silo on the Google site. And then optionally, you can add in press releases too. And what happens is you build this entire kind of like content mirrored structure. And I'll show you a diagram and hear that for that in just a moment. And we'll kind of walk through that. But it gives you all these link building targets so that you can do some really nasty off-page link building, like to these assets that are content. It's mirrored content. So essentially summarized content from your money site or your Google Business landing page. But
it's like a whole bunch of people. It's like a whole bunch of people curating off of your site, but it's you that's curating from your money site, which makes it more authoritative, right? Is that what you're saying? That your content is the original. You're the OG.
And like I said, it gives you the opportunity to do a ton of link building to all of these, Google assets essentially that can withstand anything that you throw at them. And it funnels down through, or kind of filters through. We always call it link laundering, right? We can launder dirty link juice through Google properties to where it comes out. It's just pushing power, but all of the negative stuff is cleaned out, right? It filtered out through the Google properties. And so I'll show a diagram of that if you guys are okay with me grabbing the screen for a little bit.
Yeah, let's see if it, some people are having some issues, but let's see if it just clears. There's like a little security thing that it might warn you about.
Okay. Let me see what happens.
See that it might not happen for you. It didn't happen for me, but it happened with one of our guests earlier today. So
I'm going
Are
to
you
share
having
the
any
entire
difficulty?
screen. Okay, you guys seeing my screen now?
Oh, there you go. Yep,
There you go.
perfect.
Yeah.
Let's add you in.
Okay. All right, so here is an example diagram of this is like the diagram of the structure itself. And so I'm going to kind of walk through, guys, just kind of what the process is here, the like a high level kind of overview of what this process is and what the structure is and how it works. And then I'll go into the how you guys can get access to this. Again, it's 100% free. I'm giving it away. It's only going to be available till the end of today, though, before we lock it down, and then it will be available as inside the Semantic Mastery Mastermind. But you guys will get it for free, and I'm going to walk you guys through that as well. It's in it's a standard operating procedure inside of an app that I use called Flowster. You can get a free account at Flowster, which I'm going to recommend, so that you can import the template, and then you can run workflows off of the template that you assign to each project that you're going to apply this to. And I'll demonstrate that here in a minute. But it's a free account. You don't need a paid account for Flowster. So first you sign up for Flowster, then you import the template using the link that I'm going to give you, and then you would run a workflow from the template for each location that you're going to apply this method to. Okay, so I'll explain that once we get into Flowster, which, again, it's a great app, and you'll see what I mean in a few minutes. But so what I was talking about with the source content, guys, there's two ways that you can do this, depending on what kind of structure you currently have. The way that I have been building sites and locations for clients and for lead gen stuff for the last couple of years now, really, is I do long form landing page content. It used to be years ago, I would do, whatever the top level keyword was that for the service, like for tree services, for example, I might have a tree removal page on the site, right? And that would be like the top levels, one of the top level services. And so that top of silo page would be optimized for tree removal or tree removal service, right? And then there would be, long tail keywords would be supporting articles that would be placed within a silo, that tree removal silo, so to speak. And they would, through internal linking and everything else, you would create the silo itself. And those supporting posts were a way to kind of boost the, and help to rank the location or the top of silo page, which is the landing page for the service that I'm trying to sell or generate leads for, right? So that's kind of the more traditional silo structure. But in the last couple of years, I've really kind of focused in on combining all of the individual types of tree services into one long form landing page. That seems to work better for at least in the tree service industry. I've found that long form landing pages tend to rank better than doing a more like optimized page for one particular service and then doing supporting posts in a silo. Again, they both work, but I've just found my own particular methods that long form landing pages work a little bit better. So in either case, because I'm not saying go out and convert all of your silos into long form landing pages. That's not what I'm saying. Whatever you've got out there, you can repurpose for this method, and in either whether your source content is a long form landing page or whether they're siloed posts. Either way, it will work. Okay. So with that said, let me just give you guys an example of what the site looks like that I've used in the training. So this is a brand new lead gen location that I set up. It's only about 2 months old. I haven't even fully applied all of the Google Business Profile process checklist stuff to it. So like the Google Business Profile itself has not even been fully optimized. It's not been completed. The process has not been completely applied to this yet. But so this is a new location. And here's what I'm talking about: long form landing page content. So there's a table of contents. This is built in with Elementor. But whether you're using Elementor that has a table of contents module, or if you can add a table of contents plugin to a site if you're not using Elementor or whatever. This is what I talk about when I'm talking about long form landing page content, because these are all section headers, right? H2 headers that these link to. So there's jump links. I don't know if you see them down in the bottom corner, but you can see jump links down there that when clicked will take you directly to that section, right? So these are become the target URLs in the structure that I just set up. Okay. So if we go back to the diagram, what I'm saying here is you can either create a 1-to-1 ratio for blog posts to GMB posts. So in other words, you would take, if you're using the traditional silo structure, you're supporting post number 1, you would summarize that post and create and publish a GMB post that is essentially a summary of that blog post. In the long form landing page source content, which is what I'm using, I summarize that section header, right? So the text within that section, and that becomes the GMB post. And the CTA button, which is the call to action button in the GMB post, or Google Business Profile post. I'm not sure I like the new name. Anyways, the CTA button, either usually learn more or book. Those are one of the two types of buttons that you would select that you can place a URL in. That's going to link directly either to the post URL if you're summarizing a blog post, or it's going to link to the jump link, the anchor link from the that you can get from the table of contents. So it'll link directly to that section that it's summarized, if that makes sense. Okay. So for each section heading on the long form landing page, it's going to have a summarized GMB post, or if it was supporting posts within a traditional silo, then each one of those supporting posts would be summarized. Okay, so it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, then so again, the CTA button is always going to link to either the post URL or the jump link if it's for long form landing page content. Then you just put a text-based link, so it's a naked URL link within the post body to the previous post in the silo when we're talking about Google Business posts. Okay, so in other words, post 1, it doesn't have to have a text link in the post body at all, but if it does, typically I would recommend linking up to the top of silo page, or in this case, the long form landing page URL, not a jump link, but the actual URL of the page itself. And I'll demonstrate this here for you guys in a moment, but then the CTA button would link to the first jump link or the first supporting post. Post 2, the CTA button is going to link to the supporting post URL or the jump link for section 2. But it's going to have a text link that links to post 1, right? So again, you're siloing the GMB posts or the Google Business post together, and your target URLs, your CTA button URLs are going to be tied, linking to the corresponding blog post or jump link, okay? Then from there, guys, remember GMB posts, you can only insert up to 1,500 characters, right? So whatever you're summarizing over here, it's going to be 1,500 characters or less. Okay, so then what we do is go create YouTube videos using any sort of the video apps or production apps that have like text to speech options. One of them that I use is called Wave Video. It's great. There's another one that does it called Pictory, Content Samurai or Vidnami or whatever. I think it was Vidnami more recently, but they were bought out by GoDaddy recently. They have a similar function. So any sort of video creator app that you can use that has a text-to-speech option is what I would recommend. But you take the 1,500, the 1,500 character or less text from the GMB post, and you just insert it into the video app, and it will go out and create these short little videos that are usually a minute or less, 60 seconds or less, 40 to 60 seconds, usually for a 1,500 character GMB post. And it creates these videos based upon the text that was input into the app that will pull in relevant images or video clips and all that. And it's great because when you get the hang of one of these apps, in about 10 minutes, you can produce a really nice looking video with text to speech for all the text within the post, right? So they become well optimized videos that then you silo the YouTube videos together, just like you did the GMB posts, right? So in other words, you use a playlist, which is just a container, and you insert. So you would optimize the playlist itself, the description of the playlist, put NAP in there, name, address, phone number, links to your location landing page, so your self-hosted site, your Google Business Profile website, Google Map URL, all of that stuff goes into the playlist description, and then you insert each one of the videos into that playlist, and then you do your internal linking the same way that we did with GMB posts. So in other words, you're going to take in the top of the video description, the first line of the video description will have the keyword that it's optimized for, then the brand name, and then it will link over to the GMB post share URL, not the inner page URL from the GMB website. I'm going to demonstrate all this for you guys here in a few minutes. It'll make some sense then. But the reason why we use the share URL, guys, is because Google is expecting click activity on the post share URL. You cannot push link equity through a GMB post share URL because it goes through multiple 302 redirects, which means PageRank does not pass in 302 redirects. So for link building and everything else, you always want to be building links to the GMB post URLs as inner page URLs of the Google Business website. Now, again, I'll explain what that, I'll demonstrate that here in a few minutes. But whenever you're trying to send click activity engagement signals, you want to use the GMB post share URL, because that's what Google's expecting to see click activity on. Okay, so I put the share URLs for the corresponding Google posts at the very top of the video description, because one of the things that I do is I run click-through rate manipulation traffic. So CT, I always called it CT spam, right? Click-through spam. But click-through spam traffic to these videos. And then I tell the bot to click the Google post share URL, so that it's sending not only a video view watch, but a click engagement signal to the Google post URLs, which will register in the Google business profile, dashboard and insights, essentially the Google Business Insights, right? And you'll notice when you start doing this that you'll get emails if you're notification emails as a manager or an owner of a Google Business profile, that your clicks are getting, or your posts are getting views and they're getting clicks and that sort of stuff. And so you can manipulate that by running traffic, CT spam, click-through spam traffic to these videos, which again, it triggers as a view, plus you end up getting a click-through to the Google Business post, which is a great engagement signal, okay? And there's some specific other things that I like to optimize in the video description. Like, for example, I always put a link to the playlist in the video description for every video. So that's essentially an internal link back up to the top of, or to the silo itself. But then I always put, as mentioned in the Google Business posts, I always have a link to the previous video within the silo. And that's a follow link, by the way. When you link to another YouTube video in the video description of a YouTube video, it's a follow link. That's the only type of follow link you can get out of a YouTube video, right? The rest of them, even the playlist URLs, are no follow. But a link to another video will be a follow link. So you can actually, you daisy chain the subsequent videos together by linking to the previous video within the video description. All right. Once all that's said and done, now you've got GMB posts or Google Business posts that were summaries of your long form content or your blog posts. Now you've got YouTube videos that were created from the summarized Google Business posts. And now all you do is go out to your Google site, your branded Google site for your project, your location, and you create sub pages from the home page or from the appropriate location landing page if you've got multiple locations, or if you've got multiple services, so different silos or whatever. Semantic Mastery, we always talk about what's called theme mirroring, and that's where you always mirror the structure of your money site into your tier 1 entity assets, which would be, a Google site would be your branded Google site. So whatever kind of silo structures you have built into your main money site, you want to mirror those same kind of structures into your Google site, right? So from whatever landing page it is that you're trying to promote, you would create sub pages on from the mirrored landing page on the G site, right? So again, this in my case is the root domain is the landing page over here, because it's a single location project. It's Lynchburg Tree Service, which is just a generic name. But anyways, I have a Google site that's branded for Lynchburg Tree Service. And so the home page is the location landing page, right? So there I created these sub pages from the home page that are just embeds of these, right? You don't need any text here, guys, other than the title of the page itself. The rest is just embeds. And for those of you that are familiar with Google sites, you know that in the new Google sites, it's real easy. You just click embed. And you can drop a URL in there or an embed code, either way, and it will pull it in. And that's all you do is you go grab the inner page URL from the Google Business website for its corresponding post. You drop that in as an embed URL, and it embeds the Google Business post, and that's your content. Okay. And then you embed the YouTube video as well on that same page. But I like to embed the playlist, not the individual video. And I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but if you grab a playlist embed code, it's usually always going to show the first video in the playlist as the embedded video. But if you actually take the embed code from each video within the playlist and you just append the playlist ID, and I show how to do this in the training, but you just append the playlist ID to the end of the source URL in the embed code, then you can actually embed each one of these videos as the video that shows at the top of the playlist. But that way, every one of these are a playlist embed on the G site, but it's got the appropriate video showing on the top of the playlist for that particular page, that sub page in that silo. And this will make sense here in a minute, guys. I'm going to go show this example. All right. But from there, again, internal linking, you just link to the next post within the page using the target keyword. And so now you've got this internal, this G site silo with internal linking where we didn't need any additional content. All we did was embed the content that we produced in these two stages. And now we've got all of these target URLs here that we can build links to. We can run embed gigs on. Well, we can to GMB posts. We can also for YouTube videos, but you can't do embed gigs for G site pages or G sites anymore because they have an iframe breaker. But that's okay. You can run links to all three of these sets of URLs. You can also do embeds and then link building to the embeds for these URLs. Okay. And then if you have, I use the shit out of press releases. Press releases is a big part of what I do for SEO and for link building, for branding, for all kinds of stuff. So this is optional because I understand not everybody has access to as many press releases or don't have the budget for it or whatever, but this is optional, but highly recommended is doing also a press release silo. So you mirror this same structure with press releases as well. And again, this is optional, but I highly recommend it if you have the budget for it, or if you already have your own subscription to a press release distribution service and you have the credits to use. I recommend that you do this because with the press releases, you can embed at least the service that I use, which again, I mentioned all of these in the training and the process training that you guys will get today. It has the ability to embed a YouTube video. So what I do here is with the press releases is I do an exact match target anchor to the GMB post, the corresponding GMB post. You can do it to the G site page too. What I like to do is select one of these silos here and then build my PR silo with always linking as the target URL for each press release in the silo. I always select the same property type. In other words, if I'm going to use the press release silo to build links to the G site subpage or the G site silo pages, then I will always, this whole press release silo will always will link to the G site silo page and not to the GMB post, or vice versa. In this case, for this example, for the training, I've actually linked my target URL for the press release actually links to the GMB post URL, the inner page URL of the Google Business website. And that's so that I can push link equity directly to the Google Business post and then with an exact match anchor, because Google Posts can take that, guys. I wouldn't want to do that on the money site because remember, press release is going to get picked up and republished by 250 plus news and media sites out there. So an exact match anchor to your money site could over optimize your anchor text, but this is a Google properties. So we can get away with optimizing an exact match anchor link to the GMB post URL or the Google site silo page. Either way, I chose to use this one. And then the CTA button, remember, that's a miscellaneous or a generic anchor, right? It's going to be either learn more or book, depending on which button you select. And I usually select learn more. So that's a learn more anchor that links to the corresponding either blog post or the section header on the long form landing page. So I want to push keyword relevancy through the exact match anchor text links to here. And then it cleans it, filters it because it's a Google business property or a Google property period. And then it's going to, push that link equity through the learn more or the book button to its target URL, right? So we get a video embed in the press release. Then we get a link over to one of these target properties, right? So either the G site silo page or the Google business post silo. Again, I select the Google business post typically. And then the subsequent press release is going to have an internal link that links to the previous press release. Again, you can use exact match anchors there. Then its target URL is going to be its corresponding, in my case, GMB post URL. And it's going to have the video embedded in there, right? So the first press release can have one or two links, one link to the target, silo URL, whether it's GMB silo or the G site silo, the video embed, and then it can also, it's optional, but it can also link to the top of silo within that press release if you choose to. In that case, make sure you're using a branded or a URL anchor, so a brand or URL anchor. if you're going to link to the money site directly from the press release. But you don't have to have any other links in here other than the one link to one of the silo posts, okay, on the Google property. And then, like I said, you have a YouTube embed. But for each subsequent press release in that silo, like I said, you're always going to have an internal link that links to the previous press release. And then you're going to have the link to its corresponding silo page on either the Google business posts or the Google site silo. And obviously the corresponding video. All of that is to say, once you're done building this structure, again, press releases are optional but recommended. Now you just build tier 2 links to all of these URLs here. And you can also embed most of these. Again, you can't embed G sites, but you can embed these. You can also do embed runs on videos, and you can also do embed runs on press releases for those sites that allow it. The service I use, Press Advantage, does. They even give you a specific URL for iframing. So anyways, and then you can build tier 3 links to where those embeds are. Does that make sense? So you can really power up this entire structure with all kinds of different links. You know, I use PBN links. You can use mass spam links. You can do all kinds of stuff to power these up here, because everything is filtered through all these properties before the link equity ever hits your money site. Okay. So very, very powerful strategy. And then one last thing, and again, I'll demonstrate this here, guys, to show you, but once your press releases are published, if you decide to do that, you can always go back to the G site silo pages and then click to add another embed, and then embed the press release into that corresponding page, which just adds a whole lot more relevancy to that page. And you'll see why here in just a minute. So let me give you guys some examples on this. And give me a minute while I get everything open. Any questions on that, guys?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming through, Brad. I don't know if you want to take questions from.
Yeah, sure. I can take some right now.
We'll just put. So there's a question here from Facebook user. I don't know who they are, but basically saying you're investing a lot of time and a lot of assets into a customer's Google business page. But what do you do when a customer stops paying? Just as a question.
Well, that's a great question. And see, that's one of the beautiful things I like about all of this, because, you know, for example, the Google site silo, that becomes, you know, whatever gets done to the Google business profile directly, guys, that's, you know, the client paid you for that. That's their asset you're optimizing. So, you know, if they get what they get, but everything, in other words, like if they cancel services or decide to suspend payment or whatever, you know, any links that you built to here directly from, you know, external sources that you don't have access to go edit or to remove or anything like that, they're just going to continue to benefit from that. But what I like to do, guys, is that's why, you know, typically for press releases, which is a huge part of my strategy, I have control over the organization, which an organization is essentially the brand, the media room, like the page that we set up for each project or each location, each client, for example. So if at any time a client decides to stop paying me, I can go in and tell Press Advantage that I do not want them to display the press releases anymore, and I can basically turn it off. And so now, you know, wherever the press releases have been picked up on distribution sites, a lot of those sites will purge their press releases after a period of time anyways. So it's just, you know, sometimes it's 90 days, sometimes it's 180 days, whatever. But generally, they will keep press releases live for 3 to 6 months, and then they will delete them from their databases. So my point is, if I go in and turn off to essentially turn the display off, or basically say no index, the press releases and inside the organization page goes away, and also the press releases published on the Press Advantage domain go away. And within a few months, all of the other press releases were eventually going to purge. Not all of them, but most of them end up purging from those sites. But here's the other thing. That's why I do most of my massive link building to the G site, because I can push a whole lot of power into the G site, which then I can use to power up the Google My Business stuff and the money site itself. And if at any time a customer decides that they don't want to pay me anymore or whatever, I can go in and set to no index the G site or delete it entirely.
So you're owning and controlling the G site then. So you've got your own Gmail, you've signed on, you set up for the clients.
Correct.
And then that's part of the service. So whilst they maintain and keep their Google business profile, you own the G site, which a lot of the link building's been set to. Okay.
That's correct. And so again, like that becomes one of these two things right here. I can turn those off And so essentially they lose all the link equity that I've built into these two, which, by the way, my Press Advantage organization page is also one of my primary targets. Also, another thing, and again, this is going to be beyond the scope of today's training, guys, but something else that I do always is I set up what's called an ID page. An ID page is, those of you that do local business SEO, you know, if you've ever added structured data, local business schema, you know, there's what's called an add ID field. So an add ID page is just an HTML page hosted on an Amazon S3 bucket, and that's hosted in my own Amazon account. And then an ID page becomes an iframe loop, right? It's an iframe stack hosted on the Amazon S3 domain. So you kind of siphon some authority from Amazon itself, but then you also stack a whole bunch of iframes in there, the Google Business website, the Google Business Map, the money site, if it's there, Press Advantage organization page, all of that stuff gets iframed into the ID page. That also becomes a primary link building target. So I can push a ton of power through assets that I have 100% control over, so that in case the client decides they don't need me anymore, I can basically turn those assets off, and all that link equity stops just like that. And it's just a matter of a couple of weeks until typically you start to see their positioning drop. So yeah, I like to try to maintain control as much as possible, but whatever I do directly to their Google Business profile, they get to keep that work even if they stop paying me.
That's great. Thanks. James Moore's got a couple of questions. One is, who's best for press releases? You mentioned Press Advantage a few times there. That sounds like that's your preferred option, is it?
Yes, it is. And so, guys, let me, just so you guys can actually kind of go through this as you have questions, let me drop this in the chat if I can figure out where chat is. This says private chat. So yeah, I don't know if you guys are all going to see this or not, but to get access to this, guys, again, it's 100% free. I'll show you how to do this right now. And then we'll go through and I'll show you live examples of the structure and how it works. Okay. But first of all, guys, just go to smshort.link/Flowster. Okay. Sign up for a free account. I'll show you this. I don't know if it's going to log me in or not. Let me see.
Daryl, should we just put that in the private chat into the public chat? Is that the best way to handle that? Bradley's 2 links there. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just share that with people publicly, just so everyone's got it.
So, guys, when you go to the smshort.link/Flowster, it's going to take you to this website here. They've got some Black Friday specials going on. You don't need a paid account right now, guys. If you decide that you like this app, I would encourage you to use this. It's a great app for keeping process docs and everything in your business. I think it's a fantastic app, to be honest with you. So anyway, go sign up for a free account. Go to the pricing page. You'll see there's a free account. You can have up to 5 templates. What I'm sharing with you is called a template. And then you run a workflow from the template. Each time you run a workflow, you title it or name it after the project that you're going to apply that workflow to. Okay. So again, you don't need a paid account. I would highly recommend you might want it if you're going to be building processes, SOPs, standard operating procedures for your own business. This is a fantastic app for that. But I'm not here to sell you on Flowster, but you do need a free account. So first sign up for a free account at Flowster. Once you've done that, then you just go visit smshort.link/CM, which stands for Content Mirroring Playbook. So again, smshort.link/CM-playbook for Content Mirroring Playbook. Once you visit that URL, it's going to import this content mirroring template right here into your account. Okay. And you'll see that you can edit the template, which means you go in and actually edit the stuff that I put in there. I don't recommend that. What you want to do is you want to create a workflow, and then you want to name it after the location. So I'm going to say Lynchburg Tree Service, and I'm just going to put demo after it so that I know it's demo. You can assign it to, this is a dummy account that I have, a persona account, but you can assign it to, this will be your name with your free account. And then you would just click create a workflow. And once you've done that, this is what the workflow looks like. And so you'll see I've got all of my links in here, guys, that go out to the various things I talk about. Press releases, if you want a subscription, Press Advantage is what I use. There's a 3 PR per month subscription there that I don't think you can get anywhere else. But if you want single PRs, you can get single press releases from various sources. I link to a provider there as well. But then, guys, like I said, this is a checklist essentially, and training and everything is built right into here. So you can go through, watch the videos. As you complete each step, you can check it off. Then you go into the source content. There's some training here about that. and just so on and so forth, all throughout the training here. And like, for example, link building alone, this is probably the longest module, but you can see I've got some providers in here that I like to use for link building for these structures. Here is where I talk about the target URLs that you want to power up. I've got training videos to correspond with everything. I talk about the anchor text and how to develop an anchor text list for your links. I talk about how to split up the links or link distribution for any sort of link building gig that you're going to use to apply to this structure. So again, you guys can see that like I pretty much, this is a full-on course in here. So hopefully that makes sense. Is that pretty clear, guys?
This looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, just as a resource to give away and share is fantastic. I mean, there's obviously a lot of layers to this. I'm certainly going to watch back this part of the video again, and I do actually have Flowster as well myself, so I'm going to be happy to
great app
that and take a look at it. Yeah, I've not got too much into it, to be honest. It does look really good. The fact you can share the SOPs straight away as you've done here is fantastic. So yeah, looks fantastic. Great.
Yep. And so there's this other module here that I was going to add some. I'm going to add some kind of supplemental training to, guys. Once I'm still in the process of waiting on all the links to be built, and also in the process of publishing the press release silo for this structure as well. I've got the first 2 press releases published. Once I get all 5 of them done, I'm going to add some additional training to kind of show it in here in module 9 to show like results so that you guys can see some of that stuff, because this is a brand new project that was just built on November 16th and 17th. So the demonstration that I'm showing here, it's or today for Lynchburg Tree, like literally the GMB posts that I published for this process were on November 16th. So it's not even been a full 2 weeks yet. So all the link building, everything is still going on. It takes about 30 days from the time you set this structure up to kind of complete all of the, press releases apart from those, because typically I recommend publishing press releases at the rate of about 1 every 2 weeks or 2 per month. So to do 6 or 5 in this case, it would take about 10 weeks. I'm actually just publishing them at about 1 per week right now. But for the rest of these, if apart from press releases, usually depending on what kind of link building providers you use and everything else, but I like to do multiple layers. So I'll do a link building gig to target my G site silo pages, my GMB post URLs. And then so those will be like tier 2 PBN links essentially to those target URLs. Then once I get that report back, then I like to send those tier 2 PBN URLs to like a GSA spam gig or something like that, where I can really power up those tier 2 PBN links, right? So I do tier 3 links to my tier 2 links. Same thing goes with embeds. I like to do embed runs for the YouTube videos. And then what I like to do is once I get the embed runs back, like the URLs where the embeds are, then I like to do a spam, like a bulk link spam gig to power up the embed URLs. So it's a multiple stage or multiple step process. But once it's all done, and like I said, it usually takes about 30 days, disregarding the press releases. It takes about 30 days to complete the link building and embeds and link building for this structure. Okay, so it's still in progress, but let's go through this, guys, so I can show you what this entire structure looks like. Okay, so here's my location landing page. This is long form content that I decided to use as opposed to, now I've got 8 section headers here, but to keep the training a little bit shorter, I only did 5 posts in the silo, which you can see in the diagram. But again, something else that I plan on doing is going back and completing the other 3 posts to complete this kind of structure for this. But I've just got the top 5 linked to in this content mirroring structure right now. Okay. So anyways, as you can see, the first post, if we go down here, you'll see I started on November 16th, is the first post you are. This is the first post you are within the silo, So I'm just going to click to open that link in a new tab. Now, this is what I'm talking about as the inner page URL, guys. This is, and you can get rid of that question mark HL equals, and in this case, English. That's just the language code. But anything up until the question mark and that inner page URL, this is the URL that you want to build links to for GMB posts, because this is an inner page, and this learn more button here is a follow link to its target URL, whatever it's linked to. And if I don't know if you can see it down in the corner, but if I copy link location and I paste that into a notepad file, you'll see that links directly to the tree services jump link, which is section heading 1 right? It's an H2 heading, but it's the first H2 heading on that page. So if we go back to the page, that's this jump link right here, which actually links to this section right here. Okay. So you'll see that that's the learn more button. Then, as I mentioned in the diagram, when I was describing the diagram, guys, I have a text link to the location landing page itself, right? These are no follow links, guys. Any sort of links, which can only be naked URLs in the post body of a GMB post or Google Business post, is a no follow link, but that's a follow link. Okay. So then in the next post, and by the way, let me just demonstrate this. I usually like to demonstrate this for people. But if we go to like wheregoes.com and we take the inner page URL for the GMB post and we click trace URL, you'll see it is a test 200 HTML code, right? It's a 200, which means there's no redirect. It's just it's test okay essentially, right? But now if we were to take that same GMB post URL, and in fact we could do that. Let's go into YouTube real quick, and I'm going to pull open the YouTube silo as well anyway. So
folks, if you're enjoying what Bradley is showing, please be sure to like the video and take a look at some of this other stuff that Bradley has in his mastermind. I have so many people that are in our group that talk so highly of you, Bradley. So grateful to have you here. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks, guys. Okay, so thank you guys. I appreciate that. So this is the YouTube channel for that brand. And as I was talking about, and again, all of this, guys, step by step is shown in the process training inside of Flowster, excuse me. So I don't need to go through everything here, guys, but I do just want to show you what I was talking about. So this is the first video of the the YouTube silo. There's 5 videos. Okay. If we go to playlist, you'll see there's the playlist URL. So this is the first video in there. And this is what I was talking about the post share URL. Okay. If I click this, you're going to see that this is going to open to that same post that we were just looking at right here, right? That's this URL. You guys understand? This is the same post.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's this, excuse me. Why is that one? That's not the same post. What did oh, you know what? I clicked into the wrong video. I thought that was the first video. So stand by. Let me go back to the first video. That's this one. Sorry, that was my fault. All right. So this post URL here is going to be the same post that we were just looking at. Okay. So that's this first post right here. This is just the share URL. You can see how it kind of creates this overlay on top of the SERP and everything else. Well, that share URL right there, guys, let me show you what happens if we were to click that, copy that and go over to where it goes and we view that. So you understand it's the same post as this one, right? That's this post here, but it's shared when using the share URL, it brings it up as this format. Well, if we go take a look at that share URL, this is what I was talking about. It goes through multiple 302 redirects, as you can see right here. So you lose any link equity. You can't push page rank essentially through any one of these 302 redirects. And I don't know why it always gives an error code there, but it does. But what I'm saying is, so there's really no value in building links. I'm not going to say there's no value at all, because there is. For a natural looking link profile, guys, you should actually build some links to these too. I wouldn't spend a lot of time and effort doing it, but the only people that ever build links to these right here, guys, are SEOs. Like, in other words, if there's a blogger or a civilian, like a non-SEO person, if they're going to share a Google business post, they're not going to share this URL. They're going to click the share button and they're going to share the share URL, if that makes sense. So the only time that the only people that ever build links to these inner pages are SEOs. So that's why I say, if you want to have a natural looking link profile, there should be, in my opinion, occasionally you should also build a few links to here, even though you can't push link equity through them because of the 302 redirects. Okay. But what I was talking about was I set up CT spam or click-through spam traffic gigs. And that's why you can see there's 39 views on here, because I've got a drip schedule for views, and I'm telling the bot, the CT spam bot, that I want one of the URLs for it to click once it lands on this page and starts watching the video, is I want it to click this URL, because that is an engagement signal for the GMB post, and the bot will essentially pull this up, if that makes sense. So as I mentioned, guys, this is what I was talking about. This is the top of silo video. So I don't have a link to anything, within the description, which, guys, all this is the text from the GMB post, right? So you don't need any other text. I put the NAP here. a link to the location landing page, the Google Business website, the G site, and then also to the map CID URL, which again, that's the Google Business map. And then there's where I was talking about. I linked to the playlist itself. In every single video, the very last line of text in the description area is a link to the playlist. Okay, so that's going back to here again, always linking to the playlist URL. And then the last thing that I do is I put the primary keyword plus the inner page URL to the corresponding Google post as a pinned comment in the comments area below that. So I just go in and publish the comment, primary keyword, link to that inner page URL for that corresponding Google Business post, and then I pin that at the very top because that is another URL that occasionally, again, I'll send some traffic to. And also because when again, it's a no follow link, guys. All of these links within the Google Business descriptions and comments are no follow. The only time you'll get a follow link is on an internal. If we go back, just give me 1 second. Like, for example, this would be the second video in the silo. And you'll see that here we have the link to the first video in the silo. So this, if I click through to this is going to be that first video that we were just looking at. Okay. And you'll see that if you were to, like, if I were to go view this, I'll just show you guys. Let me copy this. We'll come over here where I've got a no follow highlighter. It only takes about 10 minutes to make these videos, guys, once you get a hang of the app. But this is what I'm talking about. I've got no follow highlighter in my main Chrome browser, and you can see that it's no follow. All of these are no follow. The playlist is no follow. And even down here in the comment section, I don't know if you can see it, but the red kind of outline is on either side. So that's also no follow. But the one that is a follow link is the link to the previous video in the silo. So again, I like to power up all the video URLs and the playlist URL with both links and embeds, and then links to the embeds, if that makes sense. Okay. So now you guys see the YouTube playlist. You've seen the Google site silo playlist. So if we go, or excuse me, the Google Business website silo, if we click into the next post within the silo, you'll see what I'm talking about with the internal linking. You'll see that I am linking to the previous post URL. So the first in the silo as a text link within the post body. Okay, this is a no follow link, but it's creating an association with that previous post. Does that make sense? And then the target URL, the learn more button, if I copy that link, we go open up that notepad file again, you'll see there it's linking to that second jump link on the page, Arborist Tree Care, right there. Boom. Okay. So you understand, guys, now that GMB posts are siloed together the way that I demonstrated or shown in this diagram. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's this is great. Now, when you say spam links and things like that, we might have some people on here that might not, think of spam as a good thing and all of that kind of thing. Bradley, let's just talk a little bit. Like, let's say I'm a business owner just listening to this and we're like, what is he talking about with all of this? Why would you do all of these tricky, like, you're like electrical engineer, right? So you think of all of this, schematics and why you would do this and why you would do that from a technical standpoint. But let's just say I'm a basic business person and I'm watching this video and we're like, wow, he's getting great results, but why all this extra stuff? Why is this stuff that seems to work with Google, and why should you hire a professional like yourself to do something like this? Because it is very technical what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, like something like this, it's not that somebody, a layman, a civilian couldn't do it, but, obviously in my training and everything else, I use industry jargon and all that kind of stuff because I'm speaking to other SEOs in the training.
Mostly in here. Yeah.
And I mean, so you got to know your audience. And I would, this process training for this content mirroring method is not something that I would actually ever, push upon or suggest a business owner do unless they had a really good understanding of SEO, because they wouldn't understand half the damn terms in the training.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. But why does this stuff work, Bradley? Think about it. Like, we've been doing this a long time. You've been doing it a long time. And, some of this stuff is, sort of gray hat, things like that. But why is it like when you're in business and I'm somebody's, I'm a plumber company and I see my competitor way up high, And I'm like scratching my head. Absolutely. How do they do this? Right. Because Google has to make a decision based on signals. Right. I'm just trying to like dig into the core of why we do all of these gymnastics to make our sites really perform at the top of the food chain. And this is the thing everybody says. How do you get your site to rank organically high? And what Bradley's given you here is a masterclass on how it's done. And if you don't know how to do it, get somebody to do it for you, because I mean, this is gold. This is gold.
Well, and that's so to answer your question, the reason that we do all this, when I talk about spam, I know people think, there's a negative connotation to the word spam, but spam mean, guys, remember, anytime you're going out and you're publishing content for the intent of building a link back to something, that's spam. Unless you're literally, unless you are publishing a really well thought out article specifically to add value to wherever you're publishing it, which we rarely do that. I'm not saying it can't be done, but what I'm saying is, like, if you're using mass link building tools, that's a spam tool. You're building spam links. You're spamming the web to build authority back to your target page, whatever it is you're trying to rank. I don't look at spam as a bad word or negative word in any sense, because it's just what we do. We spam stuff as SEOs. Like we find ways to exploit stuff as SEOs. We find loopholes to exploit, and we spam the web, and that's what we do. And so for me, it's like kind of a badge of honor. I don't care. I know some people think there's a negative connotation to it, but don't think that way. It's just the term. It's an appropriate term for what it is that we do most of the time. So when I say like mass spam links, I'm talking about using tools like GSA or any sort of mass link building tool. PBN links obviously are private blog network links. I tend to use more of those as like tier 2 links, and then use spam to power up the tier 2 links. So in other words, I like to use kind of PBN links to power up these assets. So these are all tier 1 assets here, right? The money site is being ground zero. These are all basically tier 1 assets. And so I like to power up my tier 1 assets using PBN links. And then when I get the PBN link report, I like to power up those PBN links using spam, right? So mass link builders. And I just purchase that stuff. I don't run any of that stuff in-house. So so hopefully that kind of clarifies what it was I was talking about when I say spam.
Absolutely. We're casting out to LinkedIn right now, and Twitch, and all kinds of places where there's some people that they're not SEOs always. Like I have the Facebook group, we have the YouTube channels and stuff like that. The people are definitely SEOs, but Simon's group has photographers that are on there as well, and some business owners and stuff. So I think it's good to sometimes take a little step back if they are watching this and saying, wow, this is pretty intricate stuff. And darn right it is. And that's why you should hire a professional that understands what Bradley's talking about. Because that's the thing, is if you go into a surgery, it's like the tree trimming. I can go up with a saw and try to cut my tree, but somebody that really knows what they're doing and knows the jargon and knows the thing about the different equipment and what to use when to be safe and all of that, that's a whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's anybody says they can cut a tree, but they're not necessarily a tree removal specialist, right?
That's right.
So
that's right. So guys, the reason this works so well is because, Google loves Google. Google is narcissistic, right? And because, building links directly to your main website can really get you into trouble. If you don't know what you're doing, even if you do know what you're doing, you can still get into trouble by building links directly to your main website, or your money site, as we call it, right? But Google business posts, those don't cause any danger to your money site. So that's why I like to use, or any really Google property for that matter, that's why I like to build this structure within Google properties, because then I can do all of my external link building, even some real nasty stuff. I like to call it kitchen sink spam. Like I throw everything at it, including the kitchen sink. You know what I mean? And so you can throw kitchen sink spam at all of this stuff, and it will launder it. That's why I call it link laundering. It kind of filters through Google high authority assets that are all Google properties. Google loves itself. It's not going to punish itself. So you can build links to all of this stuff, and the link juice flows through these properties all the way down to your self-hosted site, your money site. But it's cleaned out any potential negative effects as it's been filtered through these properties, right? And so that's why I like to do this, because it opens up the possibility for us to just do as much link building as we want without ever really causing any potential damage or danger to your money site, because it's
Bradley, yeah, just a question. So you've got your GMB listing on there as well. So that would that include, like, sending Money Robot, GSA, RankerX kind of links directly to your GMB site? Is that what
you can? Yeah, I mean,
listing?
again,
Yeah.
I recommend. I like to.
Or would you tier it out?
Yeah, that's why, like I said, I like to use like PBN style links to power up, especially here. I'll throw kitchen sink spam at YouTube stuff and G site silo or G sites.
Yeah.
But for the Google My Business or Google
Not for the
Business
GMB,
Profile, I like to keep that a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
So I like to use like just tier 2 type PBN links on these over here, or press releases is my primary link building method for these. But then, like I said, and that's just because if you guys know from the Google process checklist that I created in the link building section, and I don't have that diagram pulled up right now. In fact, I could probably pull it up though. Stand by 1 minute. Let me pull that up because it'll make some sense.
Sure. Well, while we're waiting for that, Bradley, we did forget to run your intro. So if you need a second, we can run your intro.
No.
Yeah, do it.
All right, thanks, guys. So what I was saying here, guys, is you can see that like the way that I try to treat the location landing page, which is a money site, right? That's ground zero.
Yeah.
And so technically Google My Business or Google Business Profile assets, including the website posts and the CID map, right? So that's the Google Business Map. Those are technically tier 1 assets. However, I try to treat all 3 of those now as ground zero properties, if that makes sense. I like to keep my link building clean to these 2 URLs, even though I know they're Google properties and they're really tier 1 assets. I like to treat them as if they're money site assets. So going back to this diagram is what I'm saying. I'll do mass spam links or any types of links to YouTube videos or in URLs.
Oops, sorry about that. I was trying to delete something.
Press releases, anything like that, I will run mass spam links to. But for GMB posts specifically, I like to keep less quantity, higher quality type links. So that's why I like to use like tier 2 PBN links to power these up. And then I'll do the spam to those links, right? So the spam is out at really tier 3, if that makes sense. So let me get before it, because I didn't realize how much time we've already used, guys. I'm going to make sure that I get through just demonstrating what this looks like. So here's the branded Google Google site. So this is the sites.google.com. These are free sites, guys. They're great because, again, it's on the Google domain. Very, very powerful. You can make them look really good. So this is the home page for this branded G site, okay, for Lynchburg Tree Service. And this is also an iframe stack. I was talking about what I call the ID page, which is, again, that's beyond the scope of today's training, but that's an iframe loop. Well, the G sites become an iframe stack as well, right? Because, again, here's the money site iframed in there. Here's the first video. It's the whole playlist that was embedded here with the first video in the playlist right there. If we scroll down, here's the Press Advantage organization page. So, for example, if I wanted to, I could, anyways, this is the Press Advantage organization page where you can see that I started. This was the original press release that I published when I first launched this project. That was not part of the silo. This was the first press release in the PR silo for this structure here. So that's this press release. And then you can see here's press release number 2, which was published 5 days later. And if we were to open that up, you'll see that that actually links to press release number 1 right here. It links, if we click through, this is press release number 1. So again, back here, that's this press release right here. All right. So if we're looking at this is press release number 1. Remember what I said, guys. I used, in this case, I actually linked up to the first press release that I had published when I originally launched this project. So that's an internal link to the very first press release that I did for this company. But the link out to the GMB post URL with an exact match anchor. You see that? Tree Service in Lynchburg, VA. And if I open that tab link up, that's that first post in the GMB post silo, as I was just saying. There's my video embed with that first video in the silo, so it's corresponding with this post. So now if we go to PR number 2 in the silo, we're going to see that this links to the GMB post URL number 2, right? So, and with an exact match anchor, arborist, or this would be what's called a topic anchor instead of a target anchor, because it does not include a location modifier. But this is an arborist tree care services, links directly to that arborist tree care GMB post or Google business post. Here's the arborist tree care video embedded. And then this links to the previous press release in that silo with, again, exact match anchor text. Does that make sense? So you can see that these press releases now become very, very powerful in and of themselves, and they become their own kind of target for link building as well. And you can also embed these, right? So the embed URL for this, you put I_story and I_ in front of story in the URL, and you'll see it removes that site header. So that this becomes essentially all the links on this page are links specifically that are associated with my brand and my assets. Nothing is being filtered off here to Press Advantage, if that makes sense. So this becomes your embed URL right there. That's the one that you want to iframe. And then lastly, as you can see, guys, this is what I wanted to talk about. You can see this is a 0 pixel by 0 pixel iframe underneath my iframed money site. By the way, this is what I was talking about, guys. The Press Advantage in itself becomes an iframe loop. So here's what I mean by that. Here's the GMB map embedded. Facebook page will come up here, but I'm in Firefox, so it typically, I don't know why Facebook embed doesn't show up in Firefox. It does in Google. Here's the the money site embedded. And then right down here is a 0 by 0 pixel with an iframe. If we go to view page source and I do a control find, and I'll just say S3 for Amazon, right there is my iframe. 0 by 0. That's my Amazon S3 bucket host HTML page hosted on an Amazon S3 bucket. If I copy that, this is what I was talking about, an ID. This is what's called an ID page, guys. And some of this stuff isn't going to display because it's in Firefox, but this is also an iframe loop as well. So what I'm saying is Press Advantage, I know the developer. He's been kind of a colleague and a friend and as well as kind of a business partner for many, many years. His name's Jeremy, he's a co-owner of Press Advantage. So he's built a lot of this stuff in the Press Advantage specifically at our request, like these iframe embeds and all that. But that's essentially what this HTML page is, an ID page where you can see it's just an iframe stack, guys. This is another very, very powerful part of the overall strategy. And again, it's not really part of what we're talking about today, but this is what I was talking about earlier, is this becomes one of my primary link building targets that I have control over this, because this is hosted in my S3 account. So if the client decides to stop paying me, all I got to do is go delete that from that HTML file from my S3 account, and they lose all that link juju, right? All that link equity. So very, very powerful strategy. But lastly, let me just get over here, guys, and we'll go through this G site real quick. But you can see the homepage in this case, because it's a single location project. But also, I just wanted to very quickly point out, guys, so here's the Press Advantage organization page iframed into this as well. Then we've got the Google business website iframed into here. Then we've got, all the stuff that was built with this G site and Drive Stack when this was built. Then we have down here, we have our Google My Map and the Google business map, right? So the Google My Business map. And then we have the ID page iframed into here. So now if you take a look at this, guys, the ID page is iframed into here. And on the ID page is framed into itself, right? So you understand this creates what's called an iframe loop. And the reason we call it that is because it's very similar to, have you guys ever stood in between two mirrors and you look in one of the mirrors and you see that mirror in mirror image that it goes on for infinity. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's what happens. It's like a wormhole, right? The bots, the Google spiders come in to crawl these pages and they get stuck in these iframe loops. And it's like a never ending where they just keep going down this, further and further and further into infinity, into oblivion. And it's feeding back that data back to Google. And so it becomes very, very, very powerful. And so that's the G site itself. But then the internal pages, all you do is, and again, all this is in the training, guys, but you create a sub page of the home page, and then I title that page based upon the keyword for its corresponding post, right? So whatever I'm optimizing the corresponding post for, so that it gets a page, a sub page built. And if we click in here, this is what I'm talking about. Now I take the same keyword and I put that as the heading or the title of the page. And then I hyperlink that to, which is a follow link because it's a Google property. As long as you're linking to Google properties, they're follow links on G sites. Any external links to anything other than Google properties will all be no follow links. But if I click on that URL, you'll see that it's an exact match anchor from the G site that goes to its corresponding Google Business Post URL, the inner page URL. So we can push link equity through this page, through that URL to this. Then we've got the YouTube video embed, the playlist embed with the corresponding video, appropriate video on the top of the playlist. Then we have the GMB or Google Business Post iframed in here, right? And now, because the press release has been published, I go back and add the additional embed to embed the press release. So now this page here has got all this relevant information, summarized blog post, GMB post, a corresponding YouTube video with optimized for the same text. And now we've got a press release in here. So we've got iframes on top of iframes. And then we link to the next subpage using exact match anchor to the next subpage. So if we click through to that, you'll see the same format occurred here. Same primary keyword linked to this corresponding GMB post URL. Then we've got the YouTube video playlist embed with that appropriate video on top, the Google Business Post embedded, and in the second press release in the silo embedded. Third would be here. Now I don't have a press release published for this one, but there's again keyword linked to this corresponding video or Google post, the embed, video embed with playlist embed with the corresponding video on top. There's the Google Business Post. And then once the third press release is published, it will also be embedded. And that goes on through all the way down to the last post within the silo, which then links back up to the home page again. So it kind of closes the loop, if that makes sense. And so, guys, all of that is done. And like I said, finally, what you want to do is build links to all of these URLs. I even provide you guys in the training. If we go back over here, I'll show you what I mean. If we come over here to overview, you'll see that I have the GMB process checklist is there. Then we also have, where did I put the, here we go. It would be right here. The Google My Business Post Workbook. You would just make a copy of this. Apparently I'm not logged into Google right now, or I would show it to you. But essentially and you'll see it in the actual training, guys, but the Google My Business Post Workbook has fields where you collect all your URLs and add them to the spreadsheet as you're building this out, so that you have all of your target URLs available to quickly go purchase link building gigs to start powering this all up, if that makes sense. So it's a very, very powerful strategy, guys. Like I said, if you go through the training the first time you do it, you know, it's going to take you a while to get through all the training. But once you learn how to do this process, which, by the way, having access to that standard operating procedure, guys, I encourage you to go through it one time and build out one of these structures for yourself, for one of your own projects or a client project or whatever, just so that you get familiar with it. But then assign the, get one of your virtual assistants an account on Flowster, or have them sign up for a free account, and then share the SOP with them and have a VA go through it. Once somebody gets efficient with this process, it can be completed in about 4 to 5 hours, including all the video creation and everything else. So it's not something I recommend that you do yourself, which is precisely why I built the process doc, because I've done this 5 or 6 times myself and I don't want to do it anymore. So now I've got it available for you guys as well as for virtual assistants. Does that make sense?
I feel like, Bradley,
Amazing.
we need a big gallon tip jar, because you just gave us so much knowledge. We really, seriously, didn't expect you to deliver again this much. So, wow.
Yeah,
Great
so many
stuff.
layers
And
to
I
this.
was
Really impressive. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome,
we were
guys.
just
My
talking behind the scenes there about some of the things that you just said that we were like, we got to do this. So
Yeah.
we're pretty excited about some of the things you were talking about. So awesome. So now, if somebody wants to learn more, you do have a mastermind. People can find that on Facebook, or how do they find you about joining your mastermind?
It's also in the process training, at the very top of every one of the modules. It says, copyright Semantic Mastery Mastermind, and that's linked over to the mastermind sales page if anybody wants to join the mastermind. I've got process docs like this that for almost everything that I do in my business. I'm currently building a full SOP for everything in the Google process checklist. So you guys have the checklist that I shared with your group last month, Daryl, but I'm actually building the SOPs in Flowster right now to execute every one of those steps within the checklist. So mastermind members get access to my SOPs as I complete them. I share them. But that's the only place you can get those. So
that's
by the way,
great.
one thing real quick I want to mention, guys, this was a brand new project. So I want you guys to keep in mind, when you apply this method, the content mirroring method, and you start doing all that link building and everything else, the icing on the cake, kind of like finally the last piece of all of this, and I talk about that in the last module in the training. That's the last completed module. There's one that's kind of empty right now where I'm going to add some kind of follow-up stuff once the full structure is built and the links have all been built. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, you understand you're creating a massive amount of activity between
my bad. Yeah.
between all the links coming in and everything, as well as, like I said, the last module, I talk about click-through rate manipulation using CT spam to kind of help ignite everything. It's like adding fuel to an already burning fire. So that's, engagement metrics that you can spoof using CT spam bots. I use a particular one called Viper Tools, but there are other bots out there that apparently work, like CTR Booster, I think is another one. Anyway, I just want to clarify that, guys, when you start to build out something like this and you're pushing all this massive link activity and engagement activity, you're going to see significant dancing, right? So in other words, you might see an initial boost, which is what I typically see from one of these, and then you'll start to see some volatile swings in organic ranking because of this. And that's because Google's trying to figure out what to do with all this new activity and all this new link equity flowing into the website. So just be aware that, like, you'll probably see a positive boost initially, and then you'll start seeing some pretty wild swings in organic rankings. But once everything kind of settles in, it usually takes about 3 weeks. But once everything kind of fully settles in, I typically see a significant increase in ranking, both in the maps as well as in organic ranking from this kind of a method.
Fantastic. Yeah, Bradley, we've got a couple of questions. Daryl, we've got time just to cover off some of the questions that people have asked there.
So, Bradley can spin the wheel after.
Yeah.
If he has time.
Question here from Rich Muir. Bradley, what plugin for WordPress do you recommend for the jump links? And does that plugin work well with Magic Page plugin? I don't know if
yes, sir. And Rich,
or not. Yeah.
Rich is one of our newer mastermind members. So,
okay.
Hey, Rich, what's up, buddy? That's an Elementor. I've got Elementor Pro, and that table of contents is one of the elements inside of Elementor. So that works with Magic Page plugin for sure, because it's Elementor. But you can also, I don't know about being compatible with Magic Page plugin, but I've, in some other local sites that I built that I didn't use Elementor, I've used the easy table of contents plugin to create table of contents, but I don't know if that would conflict with Magic Page or not.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question here from Dana. So if he's a business owner, you want to hire somebody for this to do for your money site, what are the words that they would use to describe this world? Is it SEO specialist or some other terms?
Yeah, you could, since you have access, Dana, to the standard operating procedure in Flowster, what you could do is hire a virtual assistant, like an SEO virtual assistant, or an administrative assistant, or just, they don't even need to be an SEO assistant really, and just hand them that SOP and they can go through it and learn how to do it. All you really need to do is hire a virtual assistant. You can go to Upwork and find somebody to do that, or whatever. Within probably about the next month, we're going to have that as a done for you service available. We just launched, it's still in alpha testing, guys, but we just launched a service called Content Kings with a K, content with a K, where we're producing done for you SEO optimized or SEO tuned content, because like I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, 70% of ranking right now is on page. So it makes sense to invest into well-tuned content. So we have launched a service specifically to provide that content. And this is going to be an add-on, the content mirroring method, because here's the thing. You invest money in good content. Well, how do you squeeze the most power out of that content? The content mirroring method. So it's like you've already invested this kind of money in this in well-tuned content. So now how do you get the most power out of it? Well, add the content mirroring method onto it, because you don't need to spend any more money on additional content. You just repurpose what you've already invested in to build this structure.
Great, thanks. Dan had a sort of follow-up question, which is about what's the average cost for this kind of service, and if it depends on specifics, what are the kind of specifics and criteria you're charging for? You've obviously just provided some ideas on how to make it cost less or different in terms of hiring your own VA, but any other perspectives on that in terms of order of magnitude cost, or the different moving parts within the costs?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to hire this out and hire a VA to do this, if you find a VA that you hire for say $5, $6, $7 an hour, something like that, like I said, once going through this the first time, it's going to take you certainly a lot longer. But once a VA gets a hang of this method and this process, it can be completed. I've done it myself 5 or 6 times now, and I can do it in about 5 hours. So if you think about that, you're paying $5 an hour is $25 if you're paying by the hour. If you were going to pay per like completed structure, that's going to be different. It would be on a per structure basis. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to charge yet, so I can't really give you an estimate on that. But if you're paying a VA by the hour, like I said, once they become efficient with the process, they can get it done in about 5 hours. So that can help you to estimate what your costs are going to be.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Yeah, obviously, some people just saying there's mind-blowing and brilliant stuff, some great feedback from people there. And somebody commenting, Viper Tools Rock. I don't know, that's Facebook user, but thumbs up for Viper Tools, which you mentioned. And Ruckus just basically saying thank you. They've already signed up and downloaded the Flowster, so that's
awesome.
great. Well, that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow as well when I get onto the link myself. So
that's good.
yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Bradley. That was fantastic.